Hi, loves. So, for the next few weeks and today, in honor and in preparation for the launch of the Sovereign Sexuality Membership Program, which is going to go live for registration on the 25th and begin officially on the 1st. Super excited about it. I prayed on it all winter long, sorting out what was the next thing? What was I gonna create next to really keep supporting this movement towards a deeply sovereign sexuality for women, one that acknowledges all of what we are, one that elevates sexuality to the full spectrum experience it can be, all of those things. So this membership is launching. I'm very excited about it. And I wanted to spend my next few weeks working and speaking around topics related to sovereign sexuality because I think that there's a way in which we're faced in general often with just this movement between two poles, right? The pendulum swinging. And it's, this kind of repressed, over moralized, shut down place swinging to this place that's wants to be so highly orgasmic and open and, like sex positive and anything goes. And there's somewhere underneath of that, in the body and in a deep sense of agency and discernment, coupled with expansion into pleasure and expansion into the full capacity of sexuality, that for me is what sovereign sexuality is, and what I've needed to discover and commit to in my own life in order to function, in order to see and experience love and intimacy become what I knew inside it could be. And in order to bring myself out of all the downward spirals that were part of my life when I wasn't tending to my sexuality, when I wasn't fully accepting the responsibility that it is to be a sexual, emotional, soulful creature, and just what it takes to get to a place, especially in a culture and a mainstream overculture like what we're in right now, what it takes to validate what's inside of us, the knowings, the yearnings, the needs, and then to actually be able to live in self-advocacy of those things. That for me is some of what sovereign sexuality is about. The membership is intended to get ongoing reminders, like all the amnesia that we constantly face. Like, I don't know how many times I just forget what I remembered. But so my hope and my intention with the membership is that it's going to walk us all through actually doing the things that we need to do to step into fullness here as women incarnate, and that it will keep an infusion of reminders and remembrance and just be a place where we can all gather to be in a wisdom stream that gives us access to the inner guidance and the discernment and the capacity that we need in order to thrive in this way. So anyway, the membership's coming up, and what I wanted to talk about today are three of underlying principles, understandings that are definitely informing a lot of the topics, a lot of the ways that the membership is going to unfold, a lot of places we're going to go, and they've become some of the most foundational understandings for me in terms of really saving my sexual well-being, my emotional, sexual, spiritual well-being, and the fullness of that, and the sensitivity and vulnerability of that in me. So I wanted to share them with you, just as these pivot points, these truth points that I think can work underneath of everything to shift how we're even approaching our sexual beings, how we even approach what it is to be a female sexual creature. So the first is this realization that I finally made, that I was made for this, that we are made for this, and that it was a realization that as I had grown up and just launched into intimacy and launched into all these terrains, like there was going to be inevitably betrayal, confusion, heights of ecstasy, lows of despair. There was going to be, obviously, what there always is, like this rich, complicated, really transformative journey through sexuality. And one of the things that I understood finally, was that I'm made for it. I was always made for it. That all of these, I was left at a certain point with so much residual impact, so much confusion, so much just of everything. And it led me on a path of really seeking out and finding, cultivating and developing practices, remembering the ways in which the female body and the female being are actually made to restore. We are actually made to basically, rebirth and reorient from the inside, no matter what has happened. That is how regenerative we are. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the female sexual current, is this incredible, almost miraculous indwelling power that is here for us first and foremost. So the knowing that I was made for this, that I can harvest wisdom from my experiences, that there are ways to really do that in a way that actually has changed the fabric of my entire being, and that has shifted entirely how I choose, how I hold myself, how I care for myself. That I was made to go through the experience of feeling very broken, very violated, very abandoned, very betrayed in my intimate being, and yet heal all the way. Not that I'm not shaped by it. We always get shaped by our experiences, but that there is this rich legacy of deep feminine practices, understandings, sensibilities that draw on the innate restorative and regenerative capacity of our beings. And that we can then, for me, what has been so important about that is not only have I been able to harvest from my experiences, but I've been able to go ahead and keep living, go ahead and, live in the truth that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if a betrayal is going to come. I don't know if I'm going to get hurt. I don't know if I'm going to lose something important. I don't know what's going to happen ultimately. And that the rigidity of control that I had been holding from having been hurt in the past, I've been able to relax around and let go of, because I have myself. The practices have me. This wisdom stream has me. And I know that no matter what I encounter, I will be able to fall back into that and truly heal and recover wholeness, even when I feel like it's been shattered. So I offer that for you. It has felt like salvation to me to realize that, and to realize that it's not something I'm making up, that it's something actually that's in the deep feminine wisdom stream. It's a legacy, right? And even though there are many of these things that aren't acknowledged by our overculture, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's still very innate in our beings. And there are places to find and to immerse ourselves in these understandings, these practices, these ways. I've created one of them, her mystery school, and it's the tradition that I serve, right? So that's one. We were made for this. All of it. All of it. I've watched women. I've been part of women healing from rape, sexual abuse, addictive relationships, entrapment, narcissistic abuse. I mean, I've seen enough to understand and to have a profound awe for the capacity of miraculous regeneration that's inside of us, and the incorruptible core that's here. So we were made for this, and I know it. So that's one of the three kind of fundamental understandings I would say have really saved my sexual well-being. The other one, a second one, is understanding the cycle of true naming. This has been coming actually into focus more and more recently, in terms of coming to a place where I understand more, and there's a way to work with how, on one hand, things happen and they're not okay, and they need to be named and they need to be described, and there needs to be, I mean, essentially there is a way in which there are times when we need to be able to name and clearly state that we were wronged, that we were violated, that whatever it is differentiated from us, and the responsibility is held by other parties in the circumstance, right? That's to me the first half of true naming. I think that's a lot of where the Me Too movement had its strength and had its focus, is just giving a true name to things. Like, hey, let's actually say what's actually going on and take a hard look and stop being in denial. There is incredible power in that. It's extremely important. There's a second hemisphere to that, though, and I think that's where we're heading as a whole in our understanding. And the second hemisphere, for me, has been to basically get the message, to take the time to understand what was at play, what was happening, why it hurt, what the impact was, all these things, to name it, then hang up the phone once I've gotten that message, once I understand, and come back fully to myself and address now what's here. Me, myself, my energy, my body, my sexuality, all these things, to, all of me, and to trust that what is here in me now as a result of different experiences is mine, has wisdom, and deserves my total attention. That it's okay to let go of the circumstance, to name it and let go of the people, and to actually come back fully to myself. And for me, that's been a huge part of sovereignty. Sexuality, every time it's engaged, it is an interwoven experience, and on the entire spectrum of horrible to ecstatic, there's an interweaving that happens. And so to come into sovereignty again, to draw myself back home, and to truly be free of the entrapment, particularly entrapment of other people's shitty, awful, cruel, or just checked out choices, right, that have impacted me. So for me, the cycle of the full cycle of true naming has been a huge piece to come to and to understand and to really follow. I follow it as almost a map of how to move through a disentangling of an intimacy or an exchange, which is to give myself full permission to truly name what I see, what I know. So giving yourself permission to truly don't even defend it. It's just you and yourself. Name what you see, what you know, what wasn't okay. Give it the voice. And when it feels full, let it go. Hang up the phone, because it doesn't have anything to give you beyond clarity, beyond that clarity of what you saw, what you know, and what was true. It has nothing left to give you. All the gift is on the inside now. And so to then, bring yourself into a deeper residency here. And, sure, there are all things that then are here, anger, pain, trauma, right? But when we are actually able to be fully with ourselves, with whatever support we need in order to do that, all the energies alive in us actually have their wisdom and they have their gift. They're never here to hurt us, right? So for me, in the cycle of true naming, what that often comes to is it brings me then to a point of discernment and choice and knowing what I need to do from the inside of me, rather than in reaction to whatever this other person did or whatever this situation was. And there is true liberation in that, because now I or you, after completing that cycle, we are acting from actual sovereignty, from inside out, from personal agency based on what we've discovered our sacred needs are, what we've discovered our deepest wisdom is, right? Our power indwelling, separate from and no longer determined by circumstances or people that maybe never had our best interest at heart in the first place, right? And certainly don't have anything to give. So true naming is one of the full, understanding the full cycle of true naming and how it leads to an actually sovereign choice and a true sense of personal agency has been a really big foundational piece for me in terms of my sexual well-being and disentangling and coming to a deeper trust in myself and a deeper alliance and a deeper self-advocacy and liberation, for sure. So then the third piece that very much relates to the membership actually is cultivating and leaning into trustworthy support and guidance. So for the longest time, and I know I'm not the only one because I've talked to many women who have corroborated this story, I didn't take anybody's advice about my relationships. So I recreated the same blind spot over and over again until it finally sent me into such a crisis that I had no choice but to actually let my whole community put me back together again. And what ended up happening on the other side of that final thing was I came to a reckoning with the fact that my blind spots are exactly that. They're blind. I can't see them. You know, your blind spots are that way too. The point of them is that we can't see them. So I humbled myself in a way, I think is a true way to say it, is like, you know, I came out of this heightened independence and this intense protection of myself and my choices and my, you know, and I actually established a dating committee for myself, and I did not move back into intimacy without a council of 5 women watching me, listening to me, witnessing me, and I was willing to listen to them. That was the big thing. You know, they were women I trusted. They are deeply experienced women of integrity and wisdom. 2 of them are going to be holding the membership with me. But they also were women who would never collude with me one way or the other. They wouldn't just say what I wanted to hear, but they also wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't collude with me in any way. They were able to reflect back to me what my intentions for myself were and had been, what they saw. They were able to ask the right questions and to really draw me out of myself and to really give me an outside mirror, an allies outside of my own blind spots. And in that, you know, I managed to be guided towards an extremely beautiful relationship. And like I said, I had all of them looking in on it. They're amazing at tracking energy. They're seers too, you know. So the point is, there has been something for me in going beyond just having my girlfriends and being able to talk things over to actually entering into agreements of accountability, where it's like, yeah, they are my friends, but it's been very different. It's up-leveled the whole game to have it be a relationship of accountability, because, you know, otherwise I wouldn't necessarily be revealing and be really open to hearing the reflection and being accountable to what I was holding for myself and what I may have been kind of bypassing or deflecting in order to just have the fantasy that I wanted or whatever. So I would say that the third thing that has really made a huge difference in my sense of emotional and sexual well-being and resiliency and in sovereignty and making good choices has been that trustworthy, wise support. That's a lot of why I've made the membership, is because my sense is that a lot of us go through the terrain of sexual relationships, like the whole thing, and it's difficult to find people who can be in the role of a mirror, a witness, a little bit of a guide, but who will not collude, who won't say, oh yeah, he's a total asshole, yeah, you're right, or who won't say, yeah, you're right, I want to see what you want to see, I'm not going to mention that red flag that I got here. You know, that there's a way, that there's a different kind of support that has worked for me anyway, which has more to do with accountability and right action and mirroring and anchoring it all in deep feminine practice and sovereignty sensibilities. So that's what I have to offer to you today. It's what's been on my mind, is, you know, this consideration of where are you maybe with these three fundamental places in your own life. You know, the first being, are you aware that you're made for this? Do you feel that? You know, or is that, like for me, that was a place where there was a weakness and a deficit that I didn't even that I didn't even know was there until I had had come to the other side of it. So, you know, to really recognize that we do need to know that. It's something that would have been birthright, could have been birthright, which is to come into womanhood with the skills, the tools, the knowledge of how to consistently recover and regenerate and put ourselves back together, right, no matter what we face. That's the first. The second is true naming. Where are you in the full cycle of true naming, in terms of where you might be entangled, or where you might be feeling impacts, or places where you're maybe imprisoned in different experiences you've had in the past? Where are you in that cycle? You know, is it a time when you're in that place of needing to really name and understand what happened and give it its true name? Are you in the place where it's time now, you know, and now it's just time to come back all the way into yourself? Are you in that place where your new discernment is arising? You know, and sometimes they happen all together. And then finally, where are you in terms of trustworthy guidance and support that is kind of that step beyond the wonderfulness of friends who just love us and are there for us, into relationships of accountability and relationships of mirroring, and, you know, these women who can straighten your crown. Are you sourcing that in your life? Are you feeling isolated? You know, are you feeling like everybody just colludes with you one way or the other, or whatever? You know, I think it's really important to assess who's holding you as you're going through the really potent journey that it is to be a woman incarnate, with all the longings and all of the powers and vulnerabilities that are a part of that, especially when we venture into the terrain of sexuality and opening our bodies and our beings to another in that way. So I'd love to have you join the membership if you want to. And if you feel drawn, I'm actually extremely excited about it. It is exactly what I wanted to offer, which is ongoing holding and support and accountability, and a place to actually like get it done. You know, yes, I love doing these videos. I love that I wrote the book, and I love how much awareness, how much power that has. But I also know that it only goes so far, and that to take it the step further into living it, remembering it, doing the things, requires a different holding and a different kind of commitment. So that's what the membership is about for me. If you want, it's not live yet. It doesn't go live until the 25th of February, and it begins then on March 1st. But if you want to be kept in the loop about it, there will be a link in the newsletter, and you can click on that, and it'll put you on a special email to be notified as soon as it opens. And in the meantime, I'm glad we had a little time together. I hope this was valuable for you. I hope that I hope that it orients you a little bit to where you are in relationship to these three things, and what your inner guidance is in terms of where you might move into even greater sovereignty, even more self-advocacy and residency in your fullness. Blessed be.